I wonder if I could call on Sir Grant Hammond to come and talk to us about the Law Commission. Sir Grant Hammond, of course, used to be on the Court of Appeal, and now he is the President of the Law Commission, which is a very important role in terms of having input into policy. Quite often, policy and legislation is initiated by the work done by the Commission, and we can all think of reports that the Law Commission has done that has resulted in policy and legislative change. So, Sir Grant, you've had a very distinguished career. Can I also say that not only has he been in private practice, but he has had positions as Professor of Law in American and Canadian universities. It would be very interesting for you to comment on the Lobbyists' Disclosure Bill. He's also had a term as Chairman of the Canadian Law Reform Agency. He's been Professor and Dean of Law at the University of Auckland. And of course in 2011 he was made a Knight Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to law. So, Sir Grant, come and talk to us about the Law Commission's role in the making of law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mai, and good afternoon, everybody. At the risk of being in contempt of Parliament, I might begin by remarking that none of the law that passes through this place is perfect. Neither does it stay static. The world changes, new challenges come along. What that means in practical terms is Geoffrey Sawyer, who was a very distinguished Australian legal academic, public lawyer, means is that the whole body of the law of a given jurisdiction, including New Zealand, stands potentially in need of reform from the very moment that it's enacted. It follows that there really should be a standing body of appropriate professional experts to continuously look to the state of our law, and indeed that's what the Law Commission Act of 1985 in this jurisdiction actually says. Cutting through what is not a long statute is the proposition that such a body should provide an intelligent voice and a positive influence on the progressive development of the law in New Zealand. And I might say in that respect, because we overlook it too often, that this is a jurisdiction which has a progressive tradition in its legislative development. One thinks back with great fondness of people like the late Ralph Hannon, Martin Finlay on the other side of the House, lawyers, public-spirited lawyers who brought a great deal to the development of law in this country. I've lamented not infrequently that we rather overlook today that in the early days of the 20th century there were a great many very good public-spirited lawyers who had a great deal to do with the development of legislation in this country. One thinks of people like Bell, who was a very well-known name. There's a story which circulates in this precinct of a disgruntled person going to see Bell on one occasion, and Bell said, "Well, I entirely agree with you, something should be done about that, come back at 5 o'clock. And at 5 o'clock this person went back to see Bell, who produced a bill for him and said, "We'll get this introduced," and it was enacted quite quickly. That's the sort of tradition that one would like to belong to. But in any event, institutional law reform, which is where I fit, requires a standing body which is permanent, full-time, independent, authoritative, generalist, interdisciplinary, consultative, and distinctly implementation-minded. And if you can get and maintain a body of that kind, then it is one which should be able to make significant contributions in a great many areas. For instance, the rationalisation of the law in key areas such as evidence and in commercial law, which really does demand certitude for its efficient operation, the promotion of open and accountable government, for instance through the development of freedom of information laws, whilst at the same time safeguarding basic civil liberties. It should endeavour to modernise the law to accommodate new technology and circumstances, such as addressing the problems thrown up by the new media. It should promote access to justice through reforms to improved and new court systems, and highlight areas of human rights and social justice, including such things as the rights of the child and multiculturalism and the law. My Commission recognises the importance of and has the capacity to provide independent and contestable advice for ministers and government. It can design and manage complex empirical and legal research. The Commission incorporates as part of its basic operating ethos the community's desire for direct participation in democratic decision making, including strategies for dealing with issues with a multiplicity of stakeholders. The Commission can do this successfully whilst operating in a cost-effective manner using modest core public funding. I emphasise the consultative aspect. The complaint that's made about Wellington generally, and those who speak about a Wellington worldview, whether it's in government courses or law or anywhere else, is that it's very top-down. One of the things that I think is enormously important in law reform is that it really must be bottom-up. And we get this travelling around the country. You need to work with people at the grassroots level and understand what the problems really are out there. When I took over as President of the Commission, I recall Sir Geoffrey Palmer recounting to me some of his experiences visiting veterans' homes when we were dealing with war pensions. And some of the stories that came out of that were quite remarkable. I recently suggested, and they did, do it to my researchers on credit repossession, that they really should go to South Auckland on a Saturday morning and see what goes down on there, or goes down there in dealing with purchases and credit and things like that, because that's where it really happens. It's where the rubber meets the road. So good law reform, although it requires acute conceptual thinking, really needs to be done from the ground up, and the Commission is well placed to do that. The Commission is, I think, to answer Mai's direct question, an important public law tool because it looks to advance references which meet a perceived community need by providing a remedy where there is a deficiency in the law or in the administration of justice. The reference will sometimes be one that neither the political process nor the administrative process is likely to deal with effectively. We routinely have to confront disaffection and frustration with traditional legal processes, which are increasingly seen as too costly, inaccessible, and inefficient. So it is supportive of the considerable public interest in exploring viable alternatives to formal legal processes. Hence, I suggest the Commission, and I simply follow in the long line of distinguished New Zealanders who've been presidents there, starting with Sir Owen Woodhouse of ACC fame, of course, and others like Sir Kenneth Keith and Sir Geoffrey Palmer. We see as performing what we do see to be a key role in the development of practical, relevant and understandable law and in tackling significant issues that impact on all New Zealanders.